everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. The channel is now 6 months old and I won't bury the lead, we hit 100 subscribers. So now I finally have that custom YouTube URL that's youtube.com/pixiedustphd. And really I only missed my goal, which was 100 subscribers by my birthday, by a few weeks, so I am really ecstatic about that. In this month's creator update, we will of course go over all of the analytics, not just subscribers, and we'll also spend most of our time talking about social media. Before we get started, I do want to say that I am going to discuss my anxiety and my mental health as well as therapy a little bit. Nothing's going to be too graphic by any means. I don't think it justifies a trigger warning, but there's your content warning, and if you feel like this will not be a good time for you to view this, check out the timestamps in the description below to skip ahead. Okay, so social media, what a strange and kind of lovely place at the same time. On July 16th, this channel had 55 subscribers. July 18th was my birthday, and I posted about that just briefly on Twitter, and that's sort of where I at least feel like everything took off. That Twitter post got 235 likes. 235. It's kind of an unreal number to me. Most of my Twitter posts get between 0, probably, but on the low end, generously, I'll say 2 likes to somewhere around 8 or 9. And that post also got several retweets, including ones from Shaun at Ranking the Mouse, and I think probably Jen does social media, but either Jen or Frank from Dillo's Diz. So certainly the retweets helped me reach a new audience, and I really appreciate it. And really, before we move forward, I really want to give a huge shout out over to Shaun at Ranking the Mouse, because Shaun is really consistently retweeting my stuff, my videos, my thoughts, and I think it really does help a lot get my videos out there, more people to the YouTube channel, and especially just grow the community and let people know who I am. So thank you so much to Shaun. I also got a boatload of new Twitter followers on my birthday to the extent where I really could not keep up. As of today, I have 524 followers, and it really just blows my mind that more than 500 people are following me on Twitter. Obviously, I don't have meaningful interactions with all 500 of those folks, but still. But I learned a lot about people following you so quickly en masse, so I thought I would share some of those reflections today. Initially, I was just following everyone back, but I quickly realized that was not a good strategy. There were several folks who I sort of hastily followed back, and then my timeline was filled with their posts that really weren't the kind of posts that I wanted on my timeline, and I found them to be a bit problematic. For example, there were some accounts that clearly had a lot of ableist views and were spreading a lot of misinformation about coronavirus, and that is not something that I'm willing to support. Similarly, there were a lot of accounts with outright support for 45. To be clear, I think some Republican ideals are worth discussing, and I'm generally not pro creating echo chambers for yourself on social media, but in my opinion, 45 really doesn't even encompass these Republican ideals. 45 isn't even really a Republican. I am big on civil rights being for everyone, so Black and brown folks, disabled people, trans folks, etc. That's a sticking point for me, point blank. And if your Twitter feed is just full of propaganda that goes against those beliefs, then I'm not going to follow you. There were also a decent amount of accounts that I assume were bots because it would be like first name and then 9 numbers and that's it. So I would scroll through some of those timelines and it seemed like maybe they could be real people based on the content that they were posting, but that's not a chance that I'm willing to take. So if you are not a bot, but you stuck with your random generated Twitter account username, that's name and a bunch of numbers, please change that so I know that you're not a bot. And there were a handful of folks whose either Twitter username or their profile, their bio, had some pretty degrading innuendos. And maybe this is a joke to them, but it's really not a joke to me, and that's not something that I want to interact with or promote. There were also kind of a lot of accounts that followed me that I didn't follow back simply because they don't post. So I would go to their profile and scroll back, and the first 3 posts cover a time span of like 4 or 5 months. I don't think you need to post to Twitter every day by any means, but if we're going to have genuine interactions, you're going to have to post a little more than that. And similarly, there were a lot of accounts who only retweeted things and never had their own original content on Twitter. I understand the function of retweets and I think that they're important and I get why you do that. But again, if I'm going to try to get to know you and we're going to try to build a community together, then you need to have some of your own thoughts for me to interact with. There's also a surprisingly large amount of people who clearly use their Twitter for things like giveaways and promoting their referral codes for services like Rakuten. If your timeline is just full of giveaways and use my promo code for XYZ and like multi-level marketing schemes, then I'm not going to follow you back. So it's been a few weeks since this huge following spree, and I have also learned that there are some accounts who just aren't interested in the community aspect of Twitter. So they use Twitter to post their thoughts and that's it. There are a handful of accounts now who I have somewhat consistently interacted with over the past several weeks, meaning I will comment on their posts, not quite daily, but let's say almost daily, and they will never acknowledge that I exist. They will never comment back. They will never even like my comment. They never comment or like any of my posts. And while I don't think Twitter needs to be like a quid pro quo situation, again, if we're trying to build a community, interaction is part of that. So I am probably going to cull back my list a little bit of folks who I have tried to reach out to, tried to get to know, tried to be friendly to, that have clearly no interest in that. Through this massive following and followers spree on Twitter, I have been thinking about and reflecting on social media quite a bit more than I ever had before. It's really unfortunate that the way social media works, the way the algorithms are run, is basically a giant popularity contest. It very much reminds me of high school and the popular kids and the cool kid clique. And I don't even necessarily want to break into that at all. Again, I'm looking for pretty genuine interactions and building a community of good eggs, good folks that I like talking to. But this whole thing does stir up a lot of weird feelings and self-esteem issues for me. For those of you who don't know, I'm pretty open about the fact that I went to therapy relatively intensively for around 4 years. And this was primarily to address other issues, not specifically self-esteem by any means, because I was assaulted and I fell into a pretty moderate depression, which has turned into mild depression, and then I also had pretty severe bouts of PTSD that lasted for around a year. But a lot of the work I did in therapy centered really around, well, why do I believe XYZ about myself deep down inside? So of course it was connected to my self-esteem. And so since I put in all that work, I have had a lot of ancillary benefits around my self-esteem and my general self-worth in my overall life, and not just necessarily connected to these events of this trauma. But for some reason, social media really stirs up those feelings in me and brings out parts of my personality and my self-doubts that I don't really want to deal with and I don't like. YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram feel like high school, where the popular kids just keep getting more and more popular. And that's not a dig at them. For the most part, all of the big folks that I've interacted with have actually been really pleasant people. And I'm genuinely surprised, and I would say overall, I think the Disney social media community is a good, wholesome place full of good, kind-hearted people. There are, of course, some who kick up more drama and negativity than others, so I don't necessarily follow all of these big accounts or interact with them. But yeah, overall, I think it is mostly good eggs. In the spirit of transparency, and also I do want to stir up some discussion, I'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts. I am going to name some names now of who I think are the cool kids. And I do want to emphasize again that this is not a dig at them in any way. Like I said, most of them are actually really cool people. But just per the algorithm, this is sort of who I perceive as the popular folks. I'm not going to include those massive accounts, the trackers and similar. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm talking more a tier down, maybe 2 tiers down from that in that region. And I apologize for any mispronunciations in advance. For the most part, I just read these in my head from the screen. I've not actually heard them fully pronounced. In my opinion, there's Sarah Sterling, Tiffany Mink, Patrick Dougal, Francis Dominic, Drunk at Disney, Derek Bergen, Sincerely Ivy Marie, Chris Meets World, Schmoofy, Sean G. Orlando, He Calls Me PP, Allison over at Pixie Dust and Parenting, Karen B, BB Brooke, and I'm sure there's more that was sort of just essentially off the top of my head. And then you've got the cool kids podcasters, so the Dillo's Diz, Hyperion Adventures, Part of Our World, Monday Morning Monorail, The Mouse and More, Imagine Ears, Love of the Mouse, and again, I'm sure there's more. This is off the top of my head. So I really want to know what you think. Do you find that social media algorithms do promote the sort of cool and popular kids situation? And if so, who do you think are the cool kids? I'm actually genuinely really curious to see if I have a distorted sense of what's going on. Because if I do have a distorted sense of what's going on, that's kind of a problem solved for me in terms of my self-esteem and self-doubt around this whole social media platform. On the flip side, if a lot of people perceive that the algorithm does promote cool kids and that we have pretty big overlap in who we are seeing the algorithm promote, well then also I know it's kind of just the algorithm at work. But without input from other folks, I am sort of just left swirling in my thoughts, and it is weird and it is kind of a self-esteem issue for me. It is of the utmost importance to me that my self-esteem does not get wrapped up in this hobby. I think that's probably why I avoid Instagram so much in particular out of all the social media platforms, because Instagram really does a lot of things to my brain. And by the way, I have noted, I think in probably every single monthly creator update, that I'm bad at Instagram, and I agree, I'm still bad at Instagram, but I have been doing a little bit better this past month. Essentially, I think Instagram is the worst for my mental health because I see all of these unreal, beautiful pictures. They're things that I could never recreate, and I start to feel sad, honestly. And more than just sad, I start to get really critical of myself. And self-talk is such a huge part of your mental health. For example, my weight has really been a recent issue in the past several years of my life as far as my self-esteem goes. During grad school, while I was attending therapy, I was also seeing a psychiatrist to try antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds to help get things under control. For those of you who don't know, antidepressants are typically only effective in 30 to maybe 60% of the population for any given drug. And for the rest of the folks, it either does nothing or it actually can make your symptoms much worse. I had adverse reactions to several medications I was trying, so it was a really difficult time in my life where I was going on and off meds, which can cause weight gain. And also, of course, because my symptoms were being aggravated, I found myself trying to deal with my depression in other ways, including depressed eating. I started grad school at probably the lowest weight I had ever been in through college. But by the third or fourth year of grad school, I was at the heaviest weight I had ever been in my life. These times also coincided with when I started going back to Disney as an adult, so when I look back at pictures from those trips, that's kind of all I can see. Even though there's a lot of temporary joy about vacation and being at Disney World, I know I'm unhappy, and also I don't really like looking at myself at my heaviest weight. And then, beyond just how I feel about the pictures themselves, when you add in the layer of Instagram, I suddenly find myself comparing those to other Instagram posts. Obviously, that's not healthy. And like I talked about last month, I really don't collect anything Disney related, so I can't set up cute photo shoots at home now. And I find that on days where I'm more active on Instagram, I fall into this trap of comparing myself to others outside of Instagram as well. So even on YouTube, there are channels that are younger than mine that have 220, 280, 350, almost 500 subscribers. And I am genuinely happy for them, but I also find myself getting really jealous. Because by my assessment, they don't post more often than I do. It's not like any of them are actively in theme parks right now posting what I would consider perhaps more interesting content. The quality of the videos doesn't seem to necessarily be better. So yeah, it's disappointing, and I don't really like finding myself doing that kind of activity. The other thing about Instagram in particular is that I find it temporarily distorts my view of myself. For example, Instagram is full of Disney engagements and Disney weddings. And even though I don't follow these individual creators, the Instagram algorithm promotes those posts to me because I follow very similar hashtags. A little background, my partner and I have been together for around 6.5 years, and we both very much don't believe in marriage and don't want to get legally married, and also definitely don't want a wedding. The fanfare and cost of a wedding is honestly so unappealing to me personally. And this is just personal beliefs for me and my partner. We attend our friends' weddings. We're so happy if, you guys are happily married and you love that system and you believe in it. That's great. That's for you. I'm just saying it's not for me. We have accepted that someday we will probably end up getting paper married, but again, it won't be a big celebration. There's not going to be the wedding and all of that. But then I'm on Instagram and I see all these posts and I start thinking, hey, that's pretty cool. I kind of want that. But I know that I don't want that in reality. There's all these really cute staged photos of Mr. and Mrs. to be at Disney World. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, that would be really fun. That would be so cute. I would love that. Except it would be Dr. and Mr. for me, obviously. But I know I don't actually want that. So the way that Instagram has so much influence over me and my sense of self and what I want and what I believe is disturbing. Even though I'm a grown adult, social media can still warp my sense of self like this. So yes, I did hit my goal of 100 subscribers on August 7th, and I am honestly so happy about that. I'm sure some of those subscribers were pity subscribers based on my numbers and my birthday post over on Twitter, but I don't really care. Putting that aside though, it's become very clear to me that I need to work on some boundaries with this hobby and my mental health. I do want to be able to maintain this hobby while also preserving my mental health. Let me know in the comments down below if you have struggled with this and also any tips or tricks you have about preserving your sense of self and getting rid of those imposter fears. I know for me, so far the best thing that I found is those genuine interactions and is building that community. Some folks I have really enjoyed interacting with, and these accounts vary from pretty small to pretty huge. So like I said, again, the hugeness or the popularity does not reflect at all on their personality. But anyway, those accounts that I have loved interacting with and really help out with my imposter fears include Shaun at Ranking the Mouse, Magically Mandy, Liz at Epcat Center, Tim W, Disney Itinerary, Parks According to, A Life in the Parks, Jen LaForge, Mimi at Another WDW Lady, Shama at Safe Space, Chrissy Murphy, Marissa over at Think Mickey Blog, The Dillos, the Monday Morning Monorail Family, I think mostly Justin posts on their social media, but I'm not entirely sure, the Part of Our World podcast crew, Audubon Maine, and Spaghetti at Dress the Force. And again, I'm really sorry if I forgot anyone. The overall point, though, for me is the antidote to these terrible feelings, other than additional therapy, really is that Disney community. So I do appreciate all the time and effort you all put into making it a wonderful place to be. All right, let's move on to analytics. I am filming this a bit early, so the month 6 stats will run from July 10th through August 8th. I had 956 views from 468 unique viewers. This resulted in 82.9 hours of watch time. The average watch time was 5 minutes and 12 seconds. This translates into an average percent view of 48.5%. The channel got 9,948 impressions. 21.5% of those were from YouTube recommending my content. And finally, 73.4% of watch time was from folks who were not subscribed, but I did get 51 new subscribers this month. Compared to last month, overall, this month was pretty great, especially for new subscribers and watch time. The average view duration and percentage did dip a little bit, which is of course disappointing. And also the percentage of folks who contribute to watch time who are not subscribed did increase a little bit, which again, slightly disappointing. But I am reaching a much wider audience this month, so I guess I'm not surprised to see more folks that are watching my videos who are not subscribed. Overall though, this is by far the best month I've ever had on YouTube, so I'm really happy about that. Moving on to lifetime. On Twitter, I have 524 followers and I am following 544 accounts. On Instagram, I have 74 followers and I am following 137 accounts. On YouTube, I now have 2,007 total views, resulting in 161 hours watch time. The average view duration is 4 minutes and 48 seconds, and the average view percentage is 46.7%. The channel has over 22,800 total impressions, and 16.4% of those are from YouTube recommending my content. Overall, 75.1% of watch time is from folks who are not subscribed, but I do now have 101 subscribers to the channel. So the month 5 to month 6 comparison for some metrics were not ideal, they were trending in the wrong way, but overall the lifetime metrics are still trending all in the right direction. For example, average view duration lifetime last month was 4 minutes and 27 seconds, and now it's 4 minutes 48 seconds. Similarly, the average view percent lifetime increased about 1.7% between the lifetime stats last month and the lifetime stats this month. And also excitingly, the percentage of watch time from those who are not subscribed is also down a couple percentage points from lifetime last month to lifetime this month. So even though those stats weren't trending positively in the month-to-month comparison, because the watch hours and views I got this month were so much larger than any other month, they still influenced the lifetime stats to be trending in the correct way. If there's any stats you're interested in learning about, definitely let me know in the comments down below, and I'd be happy to comment back with stats right now and also just add those into the future creator updates. This has been a bit of a long video for me. I could talk about mental health for forever, but to wrap this up, that's the 6-month creator update. I'm really proud of myself for sticking with this for 6 months and also sticking to posting every 4 days without interruption for that entire time. Stats are going well overall, and I think I am slowly starting to find my place in that Disney community, particularly over on Twitter. If you found this helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can ring the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. And if you want to chat about anything YouTube or anything Disney, definitely leave a comment down below, or you can find me over on Instagram and Twitter at PixieDustPhD. I'm definitely looking forward to your comments about how you deal with social media and imposter fears and self-esteem and self-doubt and self-worth, all of that stuff. Any tips, tricks, or strategies you have, definitely please share. Hopefully, as a community, we can help each other out with these far too persistent feelings. I hope the rest of your day is absolutely wonderful, and we will see you next time at PixieDustPhD.